Hello, class. Professor Fisher again. Now we're moving on to section 3, chapter 12, and we'll talk about the role of the central nervous system in maintenance of homeostasis. Remember, homeostasis, keeping the constant of the body, temperature. Remember, your body has to stay at a certain temperature, a certain pH. Your blood needs to stay at a certain viscosity. All of these things need to stay at a particular level so that your body can function properly. All right, so homeostasis, maintenance of the relatively stable internal environment, even though the conditions around us are changing. Okay, so temperature outside can be 20 degrees or it could be 90 degrees, depending on what time of year it is. But your internal temperature stays at 98.6. The pH, you could be in a chlorinated pool. You could be in a, taking a bath in just regular water, which is around pH of 7. The pH of substances outside the body could vary from high pH to a very low pH. But the pH inside your body stays around 7.3, 7.4, right around there. All these things and many other things have to stay constant, stable, so that the chemical reactions, metabolism of your body continues to function properly. The chemical reactions happen, your body can continue to do all the things that it is necessary for it to do so that you stay a living organism. To do this, you have your nervous system and your endocrine system. These are the main systems, and the endocrine system's chapter 16, so we haven't gotten to that yet, so don't get too nervous. But the nervous system and endocrine system are dedicated to maintaining homeostasis. They work together, but they do it in different ways. Endocrine system secretes hormones into the blood, right? Endocrine, inside. Endocrine system secretes hormones into the blood, into the bloodstream. And that those hormones travel different parts of the body and regulate certain functions. While the nervous system, as we know, sends action potentials, right? We have signals being sent from the brain through the spinal cord. So it's from your central nervous system out through your peripheral nervous system. Actions of the endocrine system are typically slow, whereas actions of the nervous system are generally immediate. But the endocrine system usually lasts longer than the nervous system as far as effect is concerned. And we'll talk about that in a lot of detail when we get to the endocrine system. Like I said in chapter 16, the two structures of the CNS that are concerned with maintenance of your homeostasis are your reticular formation. Remember that in the brainstem, 100 nuclei in the brainstem, controls functions of many internal organs as well as aspects of behavior. Your hypothalamus, as part of the inner workings of the brain, the diencephalon. So hypothalamus closely associated anatomically and functioning with the pituitary gland. Part of the diencephalon reflects close relationship between these vital systems. Pituitary gland, remember, is part of the endocrine system. And then we have the reticular formation and hypothalamus have many interconnections, so they can coordinate homeostatic functions. All right, so the maintenance of vital functions, heart pumping. Your heart has to stay beating whether you're awake, whether you're sleeping, blood pressure. Your blood pressure needs to be at a certain pressure so that the blood can get to every part of your body. Digestion, also very important, so your body can have nutrients. These are largely controlled by your autonomic. Remember when I said autonomic, we think of automatic. Autonomic nervous system regulates body's viscera. Although the ANS is the autonomic nervous system is part of your peripheral nervous system. Peripheral nervous system means outside of the central nervous system. It is controlled by the central nervous system, mainly the hypothalamus, which receives input from the viscera and the limbic system, the system that sends signals, connects different parts of the brain, cerebral cortex, also the outer layer of the cerebrum. So it allows the hypothalamus to respond to normal physiological changes, emotional changes, and adjust your ANS, autonomic nervous system output. Hypothalamus maintains homeostasis by relaying instructions to the nuclei. Remember, in the reticular formation, 100 nuclei, in the reticular formation of the medulla, including the following centers. You have this vasopressor center, anterolateral medulla, antero towards the front, lateral towards the side medulla. When that section of the reticular formation, stimulated by the hypothalamus, increases rate and force of cardiac contractions, increases blood pressure. You have the vasodepressor center, located inferior and medial toward the bottom, toward the middle of the vasopressor center, decreases rate and force of heart contractions, opens blood vessels, decrease blood pressure. And then you have other centers, meaning nuclei and reticular formation, regulate digestive processes and also control urination. All right, all very much homeostatic functions. Remember, the ability to be able to secrete or remove waste is an element of life. We also have respiration, one of the few vital functions not under autonomic nervous system control. Remember, you probably were thinking, well, what about breathing? That's something that's very necessary for life. Rate and depth of breathing are regulated by a group of neurons in anterior medullary reticular formation, right? Anterior towards the front in the medullary section of your reticular formation. Right? Hypothalamus also regulates your body temperature. This is interesting if you've ever had fever. We'll talk about that. So your body's temperature, like I said, is 98.6, has to be at that temperature so that the chemical reactions in your body can all happen. If you raise the temperature or decrease the temperature too much, your body won't be able to do the chemical reaction necessary to keep it alive. That's why it's very sensitive. Inputs received from temperature-sensitive neurons located in skin, also in deeper parts of the body. When body temperature increases, a negative feedback loop is initiated whereby certain hypothalamic nuclei, cell bodies, soma cell bodies, induce changes that cool the body. And then when the temperature decreases, a different feedback loop is initiated to conserve heat. Right? So it acts as your body thermostat. So what happens when you get sick and your body has a fever? And you may notice you have the chills, you feel cold, you feel cold, but somebody touches you and they say, oh, you're hot. So elevation of body temperature accompanies infectious and sometimes non-infectious conditions. So what happens is you have these pyrogens, chemicals secreted by the cells of your own immune system. So your own immune system secretes these chemicals. Also can be secreted by certain bacteria. They cross the blood-brain barrier, interact with the nuclei of the hypothalamus. So they interact with those soma cell bodies of the hypothalamus. These chemicals known as pyrogens, they increase the hypothalamic set point to a higher temperature so that your hypothalamus set at 98.6. But when these certain chemicals, which are secreted by your immune system and some bacteria, get to your hypothalamus, they increase the set point to like 99 or 100 degrees. So what happens is the feedback loop triggers shivering and muscle aches due to increased muscle tone, constricts blood vessels serving the skin. So it makes you feel in your mind, you feel your body is setting your body temperature at a higher rate. So it's setting it at like 99, 100 as the temperature is trying to get to. So it causes you to shiver and feel like you're cold, even though you're not cold. Right? So your body is basically being tricked. And setting its temperature higher, even though you feel colder. Sleep, reversible and normal suspension of consciousness. Sleep is an amazing phenomenon, actually. Doesn't seem like it. We do it every night. Everybody sleeps. Everybody needs to sleep. Some people sleep a lot better than others, obviously. But we actually don't understand completely the whole concept of sleep, even though we've been doing it ever since human beings have existed. Ever since Adam and Eve, we've been sleeping. But it's one of the most fundamental processes. Just like breathe, you have to breathe. You have to have blood pressure. You have to have a certain body temperature. You have to sleep. You try to go without sleeping for a couple of days, and your body will shut down on you. And this first bullet point: information is known pertaining to how we sleep, how sleep is regulated, and brain activity during sleep. But why we sleep we don't know for sure, because a lot of things that we do during sleep, we can do when we're awake. Like the body doesn't necessarily, people thought, well, we sleep to heal ourselves, but the body can heal itself without you being asleep. So we don't know all of the details as to why we sleep. One of the ideas listed here is the brain replenishes its glycogen supply. The brain runs primarily off of glycogen, which, remember, that's the way glucose is stored in the body. And so it replenishes its supply. But we do know sleep is required for survival. And we know what happens when you don't have sleep. It can cause unusual weight loss, stress, hallucinations, even death. And you don't have to tell a baby to sleep. Babies naturally sleep a lot, thing that our bodies do. Circadian rhythm, or what we call the biological clock, follows that's this period of sleeping and awake sleep cycle that we go through. That's controlled once again by the hypothalamus. Causes changes in levels of wakefulness in response to day and night cycles. Most of us are on a cycle where we are awake during the day and we sleep at night. All right, but that's controlled by your hypothalamus. And if you've ever traveled to another region of the world where they're on a different time, like right now it's I believe in Tanzania and Kenya, so they're like 7 hours ahead of us. So if you were to fly there, during times where you normally be asleep, they're awake, and vice versa. And so you would feel a little bit off, but your body would adjust to it. Right, this is the sequence of sleep. Right, nerves from the eye signal this suprachiasmatic nucleus of the hypothalamus. That light level is decreasing. Your body notices that. The SCN stimulates ventrolateral preoptic nucleus. Also, hypothalamus stimulates the pineal gland to secrete melatonin. Melatonin is well known to help us sleep. The ventrolateral preoptic nucleus decreases activity of reticular formation. that's in your brain stem. Decreased activity of particular information disconnects thalamus from cerebral cortex. So you're not sending a bunch of information to your cerebral cortex for processing, and that slowly decreases your level of consciousness. Remember this. Remember the thalamus is sort of like that last part. You go from your spinal cord to your brain stem, to your diencephalon. The thalamus section of your diencephalon is like the last section that sort of sends information to different parts, filters which information goes to which part of your brain. And so you start to disconnect the thalamus, so to speak, from it doesn't physically disconnect, but it stops basically sending information, as much information, to your cerebral cortex. And so your brain starts to slow down as you decrease your levels of consciousness. Notice the opposite happens. It keeps you awake. When something's on your mind, like when you're, oh man, I got these bills to pay. I don't know how I'm going to deal with the situation at work tomorrow. I don't, my kid's in jail, or whatever the situation. I mean, when you're constantly thinking about something, it's difficult to sleep. It's hard to disconnect your diencephalon from your cerebral cortex. And so it's hard to stop processing things. And therefore it's hard to go from the consciousness to a lower level of consciousness, deeper level, a level of decreased level of consciousness. Arousal from your sleep is mediated by the hypothalamic neurons, which secrete neurotransmitter orexin. Right? So this is showing you how, sort of nighttime starts to trigger you to go to sleep. Some just not fun, but some interesting facts. So I just thought this would be interesting to highlight this. So what we call a stupor is a diminished level of cortical activity. It can be caused by infections, mental illness, some brain conditions such as brain tumors. So your cerebral cortex diminished cortical activity. So just not able to think as quick, basically. The actual term coma, you may have heard somebody being in a coma before. Unarousable unconsciousness. So it's like you're like similar to being asleep, but they can't be woken up. No purposeful responses to any stimuli, even pain. Underlying defect is damage to the reticular activating system or related components. Prohibits arousal of cerebral cortex. So they're not able to, cerebral cortex is not able to be aroused. And then we have, but in a coma, you're still alive. Then we have brain death, most extreme state of altered consciousness. No EEG shows no activity. Brain stem reflexes are absent. This is when you're brain dead. Consciousness will not be regained. You're dead.